What's going on today, GLG crew? It's GLG Dan here, and I got a first place case tournament deck profile for you guys. I was piloting Bonnie, and it went really well, so I'm going to go through the deck profile for you. For those who don't know, Bonnie's leader ability is on your opponent's attack. Once per turn, if you can rest one active Dawn, rest an opponent's character or leader. With this effect. Bonnie's a 5-life leader. For the start of the list, we're going to go do the searchers. I'm currently running both the Supernova package along with the Don Quixote Pirates package right now. So 4 Bonnies, 4 Baby 5s. I know some lists run just Supernova strict specifically, but personally for me, one of the strongest cards in the deck is going to be that 10-drop Dofi in certain matchups. It's mandatory. Therefore, I want to be able to be consistently getting that card in my hand, especially by searching it out with the Baby 5. So 4 of each of these, and then I'm going to go into the 2Ks for this. I'm going to be running 4 Violas, and then 2 Baby 5s, and then 2 Scratchman Apus. For these ones, 4 Violas and 2 Baby 5s. Initially, I was running 2 Oppos, or 4 Oppos and 4 Violas, but because you're running so little amount of Don Quixote Pirates cards, you have to up the ratios for the 2Ks, because there's only maybe 3 more cards after this that you run, and so you want to be able to be consistently hitting with the Baby 5. Before I was whiffing a lot. Even upping these 2, I know it sounds like not like a crazy increase, but it's preventing me from whiffing. I don't think I've whiffed since I added this one, so yeah, it's been great. So running a total of, I believe that was 8 2Ks. For the blockers, we're running the 4 Rosinante, 4 Yarouge. These ones are pretty important. The Rosinante, I have it at 4 because I want to be consistently hitting with Baby 5. It's also a great 2-drop blocker. It's secondary effect. If a character that's rested were to be KO'd, you just KO this card instead. It's great in the black matchup. Great in the yellow matchup if they're trying to hit one of your big guys with a Rygo. You have this kind of protection. Yarouge, one of the strong cards in the deck. The ability on end of the turn, set one Dawn card is active and it's a blocker. A lot of the time you're using your entire Dawn to play a card on curve. This frees up another Dawn just to be able to use leader ability, which is great. So this is really important. And then onto the 5 costs I run. I run a high 5 cost count because I run the 8 cost Rosinante as well. But I run 1 X-Drake, I run 4 Jewelry Bonnies, and then 4 Cavendishes. The 1 X-Drake, that one's kind of was just a flex spot for me. I just wanted to add 1 5 cost that can be able to, I can be consistently hitting 8 cost Rosinante with a 5 cost on play. This one is good against the Red Purple Law matchup, maybe even the Blue Dofi matchup, along with a couple others, like maybe even Black, where the arrested Lucci or something. X-Drake KOs arrested 4 cost or less. Bonnie, and for Bonnie, this is some lists I see that they only run this card at 2. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes. This card has won me so many games, especially the black-yellow Luffy matchup. That matchup with this card in your hand, if you could go back-to-back and stun their Dawn, they can't go Gecko. If you're able to stun the Gecko turns, they're gonna lose. They have to pitch a bunch of babies in their hand in order to get their leader up to 9K. So this is it. This is why this deck is so good against Black Yellow Luffy. I've used this card a lot to prevent 10 costs from dropping. There's a time I played against an Anel and I played the Bonnie out and froze a Dawn. Just to see if that way it wasn't going to get punished by an ace. They ended up dropping a Yamato, but not dropping that ace. They weren't able to swing over one of my characters with that rush, which was great. This freezing any rested character as well is also really good. I've frozen 10 cost characters all the time with this card. So I think running this at 4 is mandatory, and then it boosts consistency for the Rosinante 8 cost. Cavendish, this is a mandatory 4 of. You see this in every deck. This is, one of the more pivotal cards in the deck, just because of being able to restand 2 Dawn on player when attacking. Your opponent tunnel visions on this card. They have to remove this, or else the value that you get on your turn when you're able to play this out. If you have a Cavendish on board, you go 10 drop, you swing with the Cavendish, restand the 2 Dawn, you have a Dawn active for leader ability. It just allows for a lot of playmaking and a lot of ways to stun your opponent. So that's it for the 5 costs. And then I think the rest of these, we'll talk about, just do Hawkins. This is another Supernova card. I run this as a 4 of. This card is another pivotal card. This card in the Lucci matchup or Gecko matchup, this card, it will never die. This is your win con in the black matchup. Typically, black was such a hard matchup for green back in the day, so that's why you didn't see green too much, but this card really helps out. For those who don't know, if this character were to be KO'd, rest one of your opponent's characters, pretty much every single card besides one card in Lucci and Gecko, they're all on play removal, and therefore their character that comes out active, you can just tap it and save the Hawkins. The only other card that can remove it is if they swing with a Brook. They have to Ice Age it and then hit you with the 3-cost Brook swing when it minuses 1 cost and then KOs a 0 power or 0 cost character. That's the only form of removal. But at that point, by the time they get that out, they're pretty much behind if they have to extend for that portion. So this card, I've dropped 4 in one game before against a Lucci, and I 4-0'd them. It was bad. This card, I really am aggressive with this card a lot. I think this is really important that I think people kind of forget about is this guy's a 7k power character. It's huge. Your opponent it forces 2 cards out of hand or a life take. It's great. It's great to swing with, and whenever I have the chance, I try to swing as much as possible with this card because even if it's rested, it's still a 7k body. For them to clear this guy, they have to swing 9 or even higher. And even then, if they extend that much, I'm just going to counter out and save it. Next, onto the big drops. I'll probably just put these all out here. We have 3 Hody Jones, 1 8-drop Kid, 2 Rosinantes, and then a 9-cost Zoro. Let me move these guys up a little bit. 2 9-cost Zoros, and then 3 10-drop Dovies. These are my ratios, and I think this is probably what I'm going to stick with. I think these are perfect ratios here. 3 Hody Jones, I've seen people play 4. I think this card's okay. It's a great card in the Reputable Law matchup, but it's also great for going for game. But I think running it as a 4 of, it becomes a little more bricky. It's great in the mirror too. I just don't want to be times where I'm just have a 9 cost, a 10, an 8, and a 7 in my hand, and that still even happens too. So that's why I'm trying to keep these ratios a little on the lower side, just so I don't break up in hand because I'm constantly countering out early at least. But like I said before, this card, this one's great in Red Purple Law, great into Black Yellow Luffy. It's great in any deck that kind of walls up. They can pretty much get punished for that, or just good for board clearing pretty much too. Use this Captain Kid. This is probably one of the cards that it could be flexible. I don't think this. There's only one time I've ever played this, at least in the case tournament when I saw it. I saw this card maybe 5 out of the 6 rounds. I played it once, and by the time I played this, I was already so far ahead against Red Purple Law. It didn't really matter. It was just another big body, right? This card, there's just so many ways to remove it these days. Like with Lucci, they can just minus down and then KO it. They can, an 8 cost Moria play can pretty much easily remove this with Stage and Leader. Red Purple Law, they have such easy way. They can just go Gordon minus, get it down to 5k, swing over 5, 5, 7, 7, 7. You're pretty much burning your entire hand. It's what they want, and then they just go minus again the next turn and then kill it because you're out of cards in your hand. I don't think it's very great, but I do admit though in some situations it will come up, and that's why I run it as a 1-up because it's searchable. Has that situation come up yet? No, not yet, but we're gonna still keep it in there just in case. It's also good against the rogue stuff too, stuff you're not really used to. The rogue matchups is really good against because it's just that strong of a card, but the meta decks have an answer for it, unfortunately. 2 Don Quixote Rosinantes. I really like this card a lot. Puts out 2 bodies for 8 Don, and if you combo this with the Rosinante but Cavendish. It becomes a 6 Don play. You play the 8 cost, play the Cavendish, restand 2 Don. For only 6. It puts out 2 bodies, and majority of these decks can't remove an 8 cost and a 5. Almost all of them. There's like only specific cases where if they drop 8 cost Sabo, they can remove both. If they Ice Age, Leader ability minus whatever, that's the only time I can see that happening. But that's just so rare. And then even then too, the Rosinante protects the with the secondary ability. If it's rested, it protects the 5 cost that's active. So it's like they can't even remove it. So this card's great. It's just a big body to have on board. It's important. 9 cost Zoro. Run 2 of these. The 2 9 cost Zoros. These are just game winners right here. Black Yellow Luffy. They tech stuff in now just to remove something like this because it's so strong. Putting this out, obviously, right, it's not going to do anything the turn, but if they don't have any removal for this at all, you basically could just win game, pretty much. This pretty much seals out game. You either clear board or you kill your opponent. It doesn't matter. And then 3 10-drop Dofis. I like this ratio. I like this ratio a lot. I don't think 4 is needed, even though sometimes I'm like, I really wish I had a 4th one. Maybe if I really think about it more, maybe I'll swap this out, this useless kid, for a 4th one. But as of right now, I think I'm okay to just stick with this. But this card's great. It's another game-winning card. It's just freezes 3 strong characters, whether they're big bodies or smalls. It just stun locks your opponent for a turn. And then the last 2 cards I have here are just 0 cost events. This one's mainly just for these big bodies here, these big drops and the Hawkins. These are important and they're searchable too. So it's like another set of a 2 case in your deck. So you're technically running 8, but I like to say 10 just because of the 0 cost event. For the first one, the main one, the case tournament. So for this one, it was a total of 5 round Swiss, and then they did a top cut for this. It was a top 4, made it to top cut. So luckily, I did lose one of the rounds in the first 5 rounds of Swiss. As you can tell, it was against Blue Dofi. And then from there, I ended up making it a top cut, thankfully, bubbled in, and then went one out from there, which is nice. So we're just going to go through the lineups really quick, or go through the matchups, kind of what I played against so far in that first rounds of Swiss. So round 1, that one was a Yamato, a green-yellow Yamato. For Bonnie, it's a pretty favorable matchup just because of the amount of blockers you play in this deck. You saw I run a total of, I think, about 12 blockers in total, and they're all searchable. Great against Yamato. And then also, too, just the leader ability, being able to tap any character. You really force your opponent to have to swing with their leader and get some kind of value off of it. So swinging, when they swing, you're always going to be tapping something, whether it's, the Momonosuke. So the build I played against, the Yamato, was running the Wano package, mainly the one that the draw spam, the I want to be your samurai, tap 2 characters, draw 2. I was a little worried just because I haven't tested it out against it, and the draw power was pretty insane. He dropped maybe 2 events on me, but even then, though, like always, Yamato is, if you can survive long enough, you can win the game. My opponent was playing really aggressive and, was rushing me down and getting me down to 0 life. But my board was just way too tall, way too wide at some point, and I just ended up going for game and winning that way. Next round, Blue do Flamingo. As some of you guys may know already, Bonnie has a hard time against Blue. Such a difficult time. I'd say it's probably the worst matchup it has is against Blue do Flamingo or Blue Bonnie. Or not Bonnie, Blue Boa. Those 2 decks just are so good just because the removal they have. The 7 cost event. Bottom deck 2 6 or lesses. Perfect range for a lot of your mid game. The Cavendish, the Bonnie, the Hawkins especially. You can save the Hawkins, but if they're smart enough to swing with all their characters first and then they go Gravity Blade, gone. You can't do anything about it. It just gets bot decked. And so playing into this matchup, I think I lost the die roll, went second. It's important that you go first in this matchup. It's the most important thing. For this game, I didn't play test enough, unfortunately, against Blue do Flamingo. So I didn't play as smart as I would. And, you'll see later in this when I explain the next couple tournaments where I beat Blue do Flamingo. But pretty much my opponent had the game or had me in the entire game. I was playing against our buddy Braden, and he just went crazy. Double Jinbei off leader ability, and then hardcast Jinbei, put out 4 bodies. Bonnie has a hard time if you go wide. If you go wide too quick, you don't have access to any kind of form of removal except for a Hody Jones, but didn't see it. Or not form of removal, but form of a way to remove remove bodies consecutively by tapping them down and then just swinging into them tall. At the end, he was still sitting pretty healthy at 2 life, ended up dropping 2 10-drop Kaidos on me back to back and just plussed off of it. Insane hand size, maybe 12. It's that Kaido is so lethal because it can kill a lot of your tall guys, whether or not you drop the 9 cost Zoro or the 8 cost Kid, it kills all those things. So they ended up losing that round. Next round going into Bonnie Mir. So with the Bonnie Mir, I really like going first. I do know our curve is going second, but in this one, I feel like our curve is strong in the mirror. I had perfect curve going first. My opponent won the die roll. He chose to go second, but going in, you're going Bonnie Searcher. I think that's what I did, and then on 5 Dawn, you go Cavendish. They have no form of removal. That thing's gonna stick majority of the game unless they have something to swing tall into it if it's rested. But for the Bonnie, on the 5 Dawn, I played the Cavendish. And then after that, on 7 Dawn, you play Hody Jones. Tap the 2 characters or tap the 2 Dawn or the Dawn that it was. I think I ended up tapping the Dawn. Fun fact, for those of you who don't know, Hody Jones, you cannot do both. I found that out recently about how you can't tap a character and tap a Dawn. You can only do one or the other, either 2 characters or 2 Dawns. So be sure to check people if they end up doing that because that is wrong. But for this game, 7 cost Hody comes out. I'm board controlling the entire time. You're kind of almost starving your opponent too as well because you're always using leader ability to tap an opponent's character and then swinging into it. Your goal is to board control because neither player has removal. And then on 9 Dawn, I just put down the Zoro. And honestly, in this matchup, whoever puts Zoro down first wins. And so the next turn was lethal, no form of removal. He decided to drop, I think it might have been his own 9. I might be thinking of a different game, but I think he ended up dropping his own 9 cost Zoro as well. But it was already too late. I kind of put it down early and then ended up clearing his board and then just taking out his life and ended up winning, I think 3-0 with healthy life count and healthy hand size. Next round is Anel. Anel is pretty sketchy, I'd say. It's definitely one of your harder, not harder matchups. It can go 50-50. It's just dependent on your win con. So the win con and Anel matchup, I'd say would be 10 cost Flamingo. I think this card is probably your best bet, because their bodies are so tall and they can get so wide with back-to-back plays. It's difficult to handle. And so the only way to do it is to go 10 drop back to back. And that's exactly what I did. My opponent did. I think he ended up misplaying. He should have triggered off one of his triggers when he had the chance, but he did the math incorrectly on it, and I ended up having enough go for game pretty much. I did put out the 9 cost Zoro. The 9 cost Zoro is also a really good card in this matchup. However, he did top deck the Raigo the turn after, and so I was pretty devastated. But that's their only form of removal. It's non-surgible, and they either run up to 2 to 4. And so you have to bank on them not having it. And so I was trying to do that because if the 9 drop sticks, you're able to clear board, pressure, put a bunch of pressure on life. 9 cost Zoro in any matchup, honestly, if it sticks, it's gonna do numbers. It's gonna be insane. Next one is RP Law, and so the typical standard is that Bonnie really has a hard time into RP Law, but I feel like I have, maybe not necessarily perfected the matchup, but I really took time to understand the matchup and how to win. In these matches, I think a lot of people play really, they take their life for granted because they're a 5 life leader. They just take a lot of their swings. I like to be very conservative with my life in the RP Law match, just because it not only if you stay at 3 or higher against them, their kid killers aren't very live. They're gonna have to play them out and then swing base 5, but also too it puts them in a spot where they can't. They don't have a chance to go for game, where if you sit down at 2 life and you sit down at 1 life, they can go kid killer, leader ability, kid killer again, 2 7s, maybe even more if they have more bodies on board. This deck it does really well about, flooding board very fast. And so that's why I think, most Bonnie players have a hard time with that. Some of the key cards in this matchup, I'd say, would be Hody Jones. Hody Jones is really good, and then Hawkins. Basil Hawkins is really good. Yes, they can, remove it if everything's rested and they go leader ability. However, for them to remove it, it costs 2 cards out of their hand, 2 minuses, whether they want to double Gordon or not. And if anything, I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it at the end of the day. If they want to double Gordon, we'll take it. So I think in this matchup, I ended up just dropping a couple Hawkins, and they ended up sticking on board for a little too long. It was a really close game, though, but we were going at it. I think it was it was up to, my opponent. He just dropped a bunch of, blockers and walled up, but I still kept him putting pressure on the life, and I think I ended up dropping a Hody Jones at the end to kind of seal out the game from there. Now, moving on to Top Cut, ended up playing against our, I think played against a Lucci player. He won, I think, 4-1 also, but he lost his very last game, so he was the top cut player. So he was ranked number 1 going into Top Cut. This game was pretty. I know for the same thing for this one, people typically have a hard time against Lucci, but for this one, I really like the. There's times I really like the Lucci matchup. I think the best win con in the deck is going to be Hawkins. Any kind of form of removal except for the 3-cost Brook is all on play KOs or on play trash, right? And so because of that, the Hawkins can just tap the character that they use to remove. The only time they can choose to remove it without that is if they have the 3-cost Brook that one attack, and if everything else is rested, then if they minus it down enough, they're able to kill it. Or if they, run the finger pistol too, that's also another form. I know that's something recent that they've been running. I know in this tournament, though, I don't believe he ran the finger pistol on the list, but that's the only way that, Lucci typically can get rid of the Hawkins. And in this game, I ended up dropping 3 Hawkins back to back. I think I won the die roll, ended up going second. 6 Don turn Hawkins, 8 Don turn Hawkins, 10 Don turn Hawkins. And then they stick. And so you got to be aggressive in this matchup. You got to swing with the Hawkins every single time. 7K to face, no matter what. Because those 7Ks to face, they're going to keep going down on hand size. Sometimes they're going to struggle because in that point, you want to pressure their life to where they have to put up a blocker. And if they can't put up a blocker, towards the end, you're easily winning. And then I think I ended up dropping a 10-drop Dofi when everything else got rested. Leader ability is great because it can tap all those big cost characters if they go back to back consecutively. But pretty much though, Hawkins kind of it wins you the game in the Lucci matchup. Obviously, it's not super consistent, right? Obviously, you can get it searched. It's searchable by Bonnie, but if you mull, you have to mull for Hawkins. At least to win the matchup, you do have to get 2 or more. And if they aren't able to remove them, you're pretty much winning the game. And then the last game was RP Law. For this round, this one was I can't remember what turn I went for this one. It's a toss up. Both times if you go second or first. I do believe though in this game I did draw the Hody Jones, and the Hody Jones is one of the most key cards in this matchup. Whether it's tapping the Bon Clay. The Bon Clay is huge. Tapping that, swinging into it after, insane. Tapping a blocker, swinging into that is insane. I also put up a Hawkins as well, hard to remove. I think I put up 2 Hawkins and then a Hody Jones after that, and pretty much it's all staking. And so this one I just able to remove board. They even dropped a decent amount of Gordons and a decent amount of Reijus too. So they saw what they needed to see, but I think playing out the Hawkins on curve. Or just playing it out when 7 Don or 6 Don comes out, and then going Hody Jones the turn after, or even playing Hody Jones on curve for 7 Don. Those kind of tempo changes is what really wins you that RP Law matchup. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching the Bonney Deckprofile. If you guys like the information here, you guys want any gameplay footage of any kind of games, just let us know in the comments below. But as always, remember to like, comment, subscribe, share with a friend. GLG out. Thank you.